Welcome back to Whispers of Turkish Stars, the place where we peel back the polish and listen for the truths humming beneath the gossip. Tap like, hit subscribe if you haven't yet, and consider pressing join to help the channel keep bringing you the stories others leave at the surface. Tonight, let your mind settle into the late hush of Istanbul, where streetlights burn low and secrets walk softer than footsteps. In that quiet, a meeting unfolded. Not for cameras, not for show, but for something the tabloids can't label so easily. Whispers moving through careful, reliable circles say that actor Ozan Baba arranged a private, after-hours rendezvous with Sinem. It wasn't announced, and it wasn't meant to be. People close to Ozan insist the impulse behind this night didn't come from a publicity plan or a career calculation. They say it was born from a private ache, from a promise he could no longer leave unfinished. A promise tied to his late mother, whose absence left rooms too silent and thoughts too loud. Those who have seen Ozan in unguarded moments talk about a sentence his mother once pressed into him during one of his hardest seasons: trust the voice inside, and don't let fear sign your decisions. For years, that line lived like a keepsake he carried but rarely opened. Then grief changed its shape. What was once a tender reminder turned into a call he couldn't ignore. And following that call led him straight to Sinem. The message he sent, sources say, was measured and open, careful without being cold. He didn't ask for grand gestures. He asked for a conversation, a clearing of fog, a chance to name the things they had both let drift. Many assumed her answer would be silence. Instead, she wrote back. A time was chosen. A small cafe tucked into a quiet corner of the city became their stage, though no one there thought of it as a performance. The place was picked for its unremarkable charm, the kind that keeps strangers comfortable and famous faces anonymous. Before the hour came, staff were discreetly briefed: no photographs, no notes, no accidental posts, no slipping details to curious ears. When Ozan and Sinem arrived, they used different entrances and were guided down separate paths. In the very back was a room usually kept for travelers who prize hush over hospitality. That night, it was theirs. For almost 2 hours, that small room held the echoes of words they had avoided and the small, stubborn questions neither could ask publicly. Inside, the air moved between tightness and relief, employees would later say. There were long pauses that seemed to rest on the table like something you could touch. But in the thicket of heavy moments, small pockets of laughter surfaced. The kind that slips out when truth finally has a voice and the body lets out the breath it didn't realize it was holding. Sinem walked in with shoulders square, posture careful, eyes reading the room the way she reads scripts, intent on details. Little by little, as Ozan spoke about his mother, the memories he kept folded away, the emotions he avoided out of habit, the regrets that had begun to shadow his steps, her edges softened. She listened without rushing to fix, and in that quiet, something like respect began to rebuild itself. The conversation turned to old misunderstandings, to intentions that had crossed wires, to words that had landed wrong and grown into problems bigger than their size. They spoke of schedules that crashed into each other and weeks that vanished in the grind of an industry that keeps no one on steady ground. Fame can magnify a whisper into a storm, and both of them know how a small misstep becomes a headline. Choices once made in urgency were looked at now with fresh eyes, less blame, more clarity. No one there would claim they solved everything in a single night. The point wasn't to walk out perfect. It was to let the truth breathe without an audience. Sinem asked questions that cut clean without drawing blood, the same directness she's known for off-camera. Ozan answered with a calmness that surprised those who have watched him struggle to speak about pain. By the end, the sharp corners between them softened into something recognizable, not reunion exactly, but recognition. They didn't leave shoulder to shoulder. They left the way they came, separately, in silence, as if they had agreed that privacy would be their first act of honesty. The staff kept their promise. No images, no comments, only the sense that a room had hosted something that mattered and was careful not to bruise it. But secrets, especially ones with names this known, never sleep for long. By morning, timelines pulsed with speculation. Fans split themselves into stories. Some said fate had finally pulled a thread, that a son honoring a mother would inevitably face what he left unsaid. Others called the meeting professional courtesy, a polite clearing of the air after too much time apart. The absence of formal statements from either side only fanned the fire, leaving yeses and nos suspended over the conversation like lights waiting to be switched on. This is where you step in. Do you think they opened a door, or closed a chapter? Tell us what your gut says below. If this kind of deep, human dive is your style, remember to subscribe, and if you want to support Whispers of Turkish Stars even more, tap that join button so we can keep bringing you stories like this, without rushing or cutting corners. As the day stretched forward, new fragments found their way into the public ear. The cafe, it turns out, is famous not for star sightings but for its low, amber glow and the melancholy calm that hangs in the air at night. The sort of place where people choose their words carefully, and secrets do not feel hunted. One source mentioned a moment when Sinem's eyes glistened, not out of sorrow, exactly, but from the weight of hearing how Ozan's mother nudged him toward this meeting. A gentle hand felt even from beyond the boundary of grief. They let themselves remember the early years, the rough edges of youth rubbed smooth by work and attention, the clumsy rumors that once tried to draw a border around them. They laughed at a few wild stories spun online, the kind only the internet can invent with absolute confidence. They acknowledged how rare it is to keep anything purely private when the spotlight never fully dims and how much effort it takes to protect the fragile parts of a life that the public doesn't get to see. When they finally stood to go, something in the atmosphere of that backroom felt changed. The tension was no longer a knot. It had loosened into a thread that didn't need to be pulled. No one claims there were declarations. No one swears there were vows. But someone who knows both of them well swore they heard a simple phrase, "next time," slip into the end of the conversation like a promise that didn't want to be loud. Fans reacted with familiar intensity. The ones who have carried a quiet hope for them took that small phrase and held it up like proof that something once dear might still be alive, even if it needs soft light and patience. The skeptics kept their feet on the ground and argued that closure, not romance, was the point, that brave endings deserve admiration too. Meanwhile, their teams said nothing. No denial, no confirmation. Silence that sounded less like evasion and more like a choice. Part of what makes this meeting so compelling is not just who they are, but why it happened. A mother's words, carried through grief, can thread courage into a moment that would otherwise be easier to ignore. Don't let fear choose for you, that may be the quiet shape of this whole night. It's a story that pushes past headlines and touches something everyone understands. The nerve it takes to show up vulnerable, the strength to face what has been postponed, the grace to speak honestly when silence would be simpler. For now, the truth sits somewhere between what we've heard and what they keep between them. But one thing feels clear, this encounter won't disappear from the public conversation anytime soon. The curtain fell softly, yes, but no one has left the theater. People are still in their seats, listening for footsteps, waiting to see whether the next scene opens a door or closes it gently. And as always, thank you for watching Whispers of Turkish Stars. If this kind of storytelling speaks to you, make sure you're subscribed, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and tap join to support the channel so we can keep following the quiet truths behind the noise. Until next time, stay curious and stay close. Because sometimes the biggest shifts happen in the smallest rooms, and the story doesn't end where the night does.